This evening I am joined by...
Yeah, it's Olli Herman from Reckless Love. How you?
The album's absolutely what's to be expected from Reckless Love. It's drenched in 80s rock and dragged right into 2022 with so much attitude and passion.
In our case, as the name suggests, it's a turbocharged version of the 80s.
Yeah.
It's more 80s than the 80s. And it's all about fun. Of course, there's a few, maybe there's a new dimension to Reckless Love. There's a kind of like a spooky undertone there, here and there in some of the songs, but yeah, it's all about fun, like Reckless Love.
Brilliant.
Has always been.
Well, that's my era. I was dragged up during the 80s, and I was lucky enough to live through Motley Crue and Wasp and Twisted Sister when they were first starting out. It was amazing times, and it must be a bit frustrating for someone like you to sort of like not be around back then. Do you sometimes wish you could get in a time machine and go back?
Kinda, and then if I would have lived, like if I would have been a teenager during that time, I probably wouldn't be doing the stuff that I do now. Because my experience, because I lived through the era, but I was too young to actually experience everything like that. So it was just the kind of like the older brothers and older cousins who got to experience it.
Yeah.
And I was the one who was always left out, and I was so bummed about that. I always missed out on the fun, and that's how I felt. And when I got to be a teenager, it was all grunge, so it was no fun at all. The 90s.
Remember it well.
Rock and music, in my opinion. No guitar solos. What the fuck's wrong with that? That's crazy. So when I got old enough, I kind of like had to recreate that vibe, and I think that's the reason. That's the original reason why Reckless Love even came about. And during this album, it's kind of like we've taken it beyond the original. Because the exact artists that you mentioned, the artists influenced us as well, and we've done pretty much like the first album was an homage to that era, pretty much through and through.
How long ago was that now?
And
that was like...
The second album...
Wow, what was 8 years ago, wasn't it? No, how long ago was that? God,
12
no.
years, yeah, 2010.
Yeah, it was 12.
After that, we always carried around this type of electric influence there as well, which is pretty much kind of like comes from the 5150 by Van Halen and Judas Priest Turbo type of albums, which are both one of my favorites. And, all the Simmons electric drums and the heavy use of synthesizers. That's a big part of the 80s for me as well.
Absolutely, mate.
Emily Roth's Skyscraper album with Just Like Paradise on it. It's one of the first songs I ever remember hearing.
Class.
So that's definitely on the new album, that vibe.
Yeah. But
we of course wanted to update it. We wanted to make a 2022 version out of it. So, because, what's the good of making something that was already made, 40 years ago. So, we just wanted to take the best bits and turbocharge it and turn it up to 11, basically.
Even down to the album cover, that's very sort of 80s and retro as well. So yeah, everything is, but like I say, it's got a modern twist to it, so that's good.
That was the aim all along, and it's funny because when you think of it, we used to laugh about it when we went into the studio. It was kind of like, hold on. So we're taking the craziest, most outrageous, the cheesiest kind of era in rock music, and we're about to dial it up. Is it even possible? It is.
But the thing is, what I like about the album, it's like I say, I've had it for like a week or so now, I've been listening to it nearly every day, is that it's not full of the ballads that you used to get back in the 80s. I mean, there's a couple are slower, but it's not so much smushy. So I love that. I love the fact that it hasn't got that, which is really good for me because I'm not a ballad person.
Me neither. Those were usually the songs that I skipped. So.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. So like I said, I've listened to the album. My favourite is Like a Cobra. Obviously, they're all your babies, but which track would you play me today if I was totally new to Reckless Love from the album?
From the album, I'd probably pick Kids of the Arcade.
I like that,
that's one of the chord tracks on the album as well, and that's so 80s as well. But my favorite changes every day. It's very tough to pick a favorite, but right now I think it still is Turbo Rider because That was one of the first songs that we did with Johannes Parkkonen, who produced the album. And I remember vividly doing the actual song. I think it took only 20 minutes or so, and that's the, sometimes it happens fast like that. It's really quick. It's like this, and it can be a really crappy song, or then it can be a masterpiece. And in this case, I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, but getting pretty close to that. It's one of my favorite tracks by us. I really love that. Sure, the whole album is definitely way more up-tempo than any of the records we've done in the past.
It's been 4 years since you've released an album. In between that, we've had this horrendous nightmare of COVID. Has it been easy to get around recording and being able to have the enthusiasm to keep going? I mean, has it been tough for you as a band?
It's been, actually it's been 6 years since we released in later, and 4 years from touring. So it's been a long break. And yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that long. For the past 2 years, we basically just sat on our asses and kept postponing the tour. The break was supposed to be a year and a half. And that was, we basically started the 10th anniversary tour of the first album from Australia, and we were supposed to tour the whole world, but we just kept postponing things all the time.
Yeah.
But the 2 years have been really pretty rough on us, and it feels like the band has gone to hell and back. At one point, it wasn't even sure that we were going to make it back.
Yeah.
There's been really, really rough times. And of course, financially, it's rough. And when things get really rough financially, it's tough to keep things together. Because that's such a bummer when you have to kind of start to think how to get how to make ends meet, because you can't do shows. And the only thing is basically it's the radio airplay, which isn't kind of it's not making enough money for us at that point, and even during, because we were away for a couple of years before, so there was no new material playing on the radio.
Yeah,
so it was a horrible situation. And of course, we all had our personal problems. I went through a minor heart problem during the time. I lost a dear friend of mine.
Nice.
Sorry, and everybody in the band, Hessu, our drummer, went through a back surgery, so we've had our problems with during this time. And you can pretty much, it has it's reflected on the album, because as I said, there's maybe darker undertones there than people are used to on Reckless Love albums, but in the same time, those are kind of the deeper shadows.
Yeah,
it's still full of brilliant highlights. And
I think so. Yeah, I mean, there is deeper bits on it, but I just love the sort of good time feel of it. It just appealed to me right away, because before I listened to your album, I was listening a lot to Infected Rain, and of course I was very angry, and she's a very angry lass, is Lena Scissorhands, and I'm sort of more of I've always really been more into glam sleaze metal. But, I did like the 80s thrash, Megadeth and that, but so a lot of tours and festivals are hoping to restart, but then some bands have cancelled, like Battle Beast and things like that. What are your plans for the year?
We had to postpone the tour that was booked for March, and pretty much because it spanned throughout the whole Europe, and there's different kind of restrictions in every country. And it's such an uncertainty to actually tour around Europe when there's that, because if Omicron is it's very infectious, and there's 14 people on the road with us. Because there's two bands, and both of our crews, at least 14 people. So somebody's bound to get it during the tour, and if somebody gets it, when somebody gets it, the tour is stopped. You cannot go anywhere.
No.
Nobody can afford that, so we just had to postpone it once the restrictions are a bit easier.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to actually rebook it for this year, so it's not another full year. So we can basically still call it the Turbo Rider Tour, and it's only 6 months, and we can make it over to the UK in September.
Brilliant.
I'm really confident that we are going to make it, because
let's hope so.
I think the world is starting to open up, and I think it's just a matter of making the decision by the politicians that it's something that we have to learn to live with.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think you're going to get into New Zealand for a while, but otherwise, or Canada, but UK, I think we're doing okay. So yeah. Okay, but we are going to just touch one more thing on COVID. If you were stuck in quarantine for a week, which musician, dead or alive, would you have with you, and why?
That's a tough one. Never meet your idols. That's what they say.
Yeah.
I've never met David Lee Roth, and he's probably the biggest hero that I ever had, and I wouldn't pick him. I'm pretty sure of that. But lately, because Steve Vai is coming out with a new album, and I'm seeing a few of his interviews. So he seems like a pretty nice guy, and he seems really polite. But then again, dead or alive. You said dead or alive.
I did.
I'd have to pick Alexi Laiho. I would do anything to get him back. I lost him a year ago. A really dear friend of mine, and if I had the chance, I'd do anything to spend a week or even an hour with him again. It's that was one of the losses that actually that hurt me a lot.
Yeah, sorry, man, to hear that. That's hard. Going back to your early days, your musical skills are exceptional. Can you remember your first appearance ever on a stage and how it felt?
Actually, I can't because I was way too young. There is footage of it. I was in a school play, singing in a choir, basically.
Cool.
And dressed up as a tree.
As you do.
I think it was like a preschool, something like that. I think I must have been like 5 or 6 years old.
Cool.
But yeah, first time in a rock band. We do still have a VHS tape, I think, somewhere that's still around. But I think that was early 2000s, 2001 maybe. And believe it or not, the band was called Reckless Love.
And go back in time. What was the first album you ever owned?
First album. I actually. The first albums that I bought with my own money that I saved, I bought 3 albums, and I bought with one purchase. I bought 3 albums. Those were Guns N' Roses' Spaghetti Incident, pretty much the worst album, but to start with. But it still was really so impressive that I really next week I pretty much bought all the other albums. I bought Green Day's Dookie.
Oh yeah.
And I was kind of like a punky kid back then. I loved that, and that was a huge album back then. And then I bought because I wasn't sure about my what to think of different styles. So I actually bought. Do you remember a rapper called Coolio?
Oh yeah.
Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise album. And that wasn't the last hip-hop album that I bought, but yeah, that's among the first 3 that I bought.
So what song from any band sums up how you are feeling today?
Oh my god, this is a toughie. If I have to pick like a theme song for my life, I think it must be Jump by Van Halen.
Brilliant.
It's kind of like I'm not sure why, but it must be my upbringing. It has a dark set of lyrics. It's about suicide.
It is.
David Lee Roth was in a bar watching the local news, and a guy was on top of a building nearby, and he was like, "I'm doing so good, might as well jump." And he came up with the idea of the lyrics, and that's pretty much kind of like my theme song. I mean, it feels like even though things are going to shit at times, and even though we go through dark times, I'm still kind of like optimistic about the future, and I'm still having a laugh. I'm still having fun.
That's what's most important, man. Absolutely. If you could change the world with 2 wishes, what would you choose?
Oh my God, this is a bad one. I'm getting bad. I don't know what to change. I'm not really sure if I really want to see it, but I'd like to. I'd like to, I'd like to see the change in popular culture so that rock and roll would be like it used to be, all about fun. I'm kind of like setting out to doing it, with my own work, but I'd like to see it happen again in a big way, like it did in the 80s. Change the world somehow. It's kind of like, this is like those beauty pageant kind of things, like end all wars and world peace, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of like the only thing that you get to wish for. I mean, welfare for everyone. And it's, more good times. That's pretty much like
Definitely
what I want for everybody all the time. That's the answer to everything. That's the motto. So always more good times.
Okay, going back to the album, will he be releasing any more singles before release date?
Yes, there's.
Can you tell us?
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say it.
Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
One?
Can you complete this sentence? Everybody needs reckless love in their lives because
the world is a grim and a dark place, and it's a fucked up place, and we provide you a soundtrack to a better time.
4 words to describe Turbo Rider.
Well, good time is 2 words, right? All right.
Yeah.
It's a good, it's a lot of good times on that record. It's spooky and mind-blowing.
Festival or small intimate gig?
Intimate gig. I'd go with the festival.
Cool. Vinyl or digital?
They both have their advantages, yeah.
Vinyl or digital?
Vinyl.
Yeah, I would have been disappointed if you said digital. Are you a saint or a sinner?
Sinner. Always a sinner.
Okay, hang on. Denim or leather?
Well, today I'm going to go with denim.
Okay, and final one, because you're in Finland. Lap dance or Lapland?
That's a good one. I've had my fair share of lap dances already, so I'm going to pick Lapland.
Do you have any final words for your fans and our listeners?
Yes, I'd like to remind people that this pandemic thing is going to be over soon, and we will see each other soon enough. I want to thank them for being so loyal and kept waiting. They kept waiting for so long. So you're going to be blown away by the new songs. The new songs are going to rule big time when you hear them live, and we can't wait to get to you guys. Hey, it's Olli from Reckless Love, and you're listening to Metal Gods Meltdown.